Hi there, welcome back to Industrial Economics. Economies of scale and economies of scope have told us about the firm's boundaries. We may see a big-size firm with a bunch of varieties of related products. For example, Apple's excellent design team can have a strong support to its product of computers and cell phones. In many cases, firm operates in seemingly unrelated industries. For example, Tata Group of India operates in a wide range of business, including information technology, energy, pharmaceuticals, Italian handcraft furniture, and automobiles, include brands Tata, Jaguar, and Land Rover. Hyundai of Korea is another example. It is hardly to show the economies of scale in this kind of production. We will discuss the reasons of this kind of diversification in this video. This kind of diversification is called conglomerate. Why do firms invest in these unrelated industries? There are two reasons. First, diversification may benefit the firm's owners by increasing the efficiency of the firm. Second, diversification may reflect the preference of firm's manager when the firm's owners are not directly involved in. The first group of reasons is that diversification is benefits for owners with some equal or smaller cost. We call it as the efficiency-based reasons. The first possibility may come from scope economies. Although there is less likely to have cost saving of pharmaceuticals from car making, it can happen from spreading the underutilized resources in organization. Some resources, especially human resources, have the general characters in different departments and the process of production. For example, managers of diversified firms may spread their own managerial talents across business areas that do not seem to enjoy economies of scope. This argument may seem to be odd with the notion of this economy of scale discussed earlier when talent is spread too thin. So, we emphasize the gains from spreading of underutilized resources. What kind of resources may be spread among departments? Mostly the general or supporting skills, say the information system or finance. Sometimes managers apply this logic too far to make mistake. For example, Michael Eisner, the former CEO of Disney ABC Group, thinks that his team can expand the experience of managing animation production to the production of TV shows, but it is not the case. This logic can be more problematic when managers perceive themselves to possess superior general management skills with which they can justify any diversification. The second reason that owners of a firm want to diversify is to utilize its internal capital market. With a perspective of a firm, there are two methods to finance its investment and operation. One is borrow money from outside, the other is borrowing inside. The outside borrowing is called external market. They may be equity markets by issuing new stock, debt market by issuing bonds, or loans by a commercial bank. The inside borrowing is called internal market. It describes the allocation of available working capital within the firm, or transfer money from one department to another. Let's see an example. Suppose a cash-rich business and a cash-constrained business operate under a single corporate umbrella. If the cash-constrained units have a profitable investment opportunity, the central office can use the underutilized money from the cash-rich business to let profitable investment. Therefore, A diversified firm have higher possibility to fund new investment than smaller focused firms. In this case, we can divide the business unit into 4 categories by 2 dimensions. One dimension is the potentials of market growth. The other is the related market share. Boston Consulting Group, a top consulting firm over the world, have put these 2 elements into XY coordinate axioms. The left panel is an example of this so-called BCG or growth share matrix. In the figure, the higher business unit indicates the higher growth, and the further to the left, the larger market share business unit is. We can simplify the coordinate axioms into 4 quadrants and investigating deeper to every quadrant. Let's see the simplified picture presented as a 2x2 matrix. Figure 2.9 shows the rows of the matrix represent 2 types of potential market growth. The first row is high growth, and the second row is low growth. The column shows 2 types of related market share. The first column, the left one, is high market share. The second column is low market share. In the top left, with high growth and high market share, is the rising star of the businesses. In the bottom left, with low market growth and high market share, is the cash cow. In the top right, with high growth but low market share, is the problem child. In the bottom right, with low growth and low market share, is the dog. So, if there is any, a diversified firm could use profits from established cash cow business units to fund the early stage of problem child or rising star. At the same time, cut down the business of dog. It seems a good strategy to sustaining the competitive advantage of a firm. One underlying principle should be mentioned. The BCG approach is based on the theory of product life cycle, which means a rising star would someday be mature and becomes cash cow. But the evaluation of the rising star is somewhat complex. A good example is the product of personal transportation, Segway. It was forecasted to have tremendous potential for growth 10 years ago, but the sales did not meet the expectation. The other controversial element of BCG matrix is that a diversified firm funds her potential businesses mainly rely on the cash cow. It must be. This is to say, given the modern financial market, a firm as a banker of its own subsidiaries provide what kind of benefit? Jeremy Stein of Harvard University answers, yes, it must be, and argues with several reasons. First, due to asymmetric information, a firm may find it difficult to find external funds. The firm usually knows more about a new project of its subsidiaries than outside lenders, and it is difficult to persuade the outsider the profitability of the investment opportunities. Worse still, the behavior of seeking outside funding may be taken as a signal of funding for a questionable project. To persuade the outsiders, firms should provide a higher interest for their bond or give more proportion of releasing of their equities. Second, the exit depth of the firm leaves outsiders reluctant to provide capital. This is because their priority of repayment will fall behind the existing debt. Third, outsider is hard to monitor the firm's efforts on the promised project, so costly an external capital to find. leaves the firm without internal capital more likely to give up a potential investment opportunity. There are two reasons for diversification may be problematic. One is diversifying shareholders' portfolios. The other is identifying undervalued firms. As an investor, you can diversify your portfolios by buying small shares of a large amount of different firms, or buying a large amount of shares of one diversified firm. But the question is, the decision of diversification of a big diversified firm is made by the managers of the firm, not the investors. It may be too diversified or too focused for different investors in a given big firm. So, for your interests and preferences, to invest in different firms is more efficient. The second problematic reason is identifying undervalued firms. The reason why it can be profitable that many firms diversify by acquiring established firms in unrelated industry is to identify firms with related low price in the market. But how likely is it? Two conditions must be held. One, the firm knows the acquired object is undervalued by the market, and no other investors have yet identified this fact. These two conditions makes this mission less possible. Why? As the same role of outsider with speculators, fund managers, and other investors who investigate the market more deeply than the managers of a firm in an unrelated industry. It is difficult to find a target firm in unrelated industry. Even there is an undervalued firm, in the practice of M&A, merger and acquisition, the targeted firm usually negotiates among firms. Given the value is market measurable, or it is common value in the context of auction theory, the firm who merged or acquired the target always in the case of winner's curse, which means the winning firm's focused of the value of the target is highest among the acquiring firms. It is possible that winning firm gives an overvaluation of the target. Therefore, undervalued firm is a false identification, and this is not a reasonable judgment of diversify. Also, there are some reasons that firms should not be too diversified. For a conglomerate, it may be too big to operate efficiently. It may due to wrong incentive providing within the organization. For example, in the discussion of BCG matrix, cash cow will fund the rising star. It may lead the managers of all different divisions exert too little effort and wait for the subsidy from the central office. Also, it reduces the competition within the organization. A conglomerate bears lots of bureaucracy, as we have discussed before. Finally, an over-diversified firm may have fixed its organizational design, which may be not efficient for the whole organization. The separation of ownership and control is a key feature of modern firms. The benefits of manager may differ to the ones of shareholders. This is called the principal agent problem in the literature. It is therefore the reasons that a CEO who decided to diversify are totally different to the ones of the owners. We summarize the benefits of diversification for managers first. First, senior executives in conglomerates gives them higher social prominence, public prestige, and sometimes political power. Is it a bad thing? It is good as long as the expansion of firm is profitable. Unfortunately, not all acquisitions make profit. managers value the social benefit of acquisitions more than profitability. Especially the manager's compensation is closely tied to the firm's performance measured in profit. One study by Avery, Chevalier, and Schaffer point out the CEO who undertake acquisitions are more likely to be appointed to other firms' board of directors. Second, senior executives may persuade unrelated acquisitions in order to increase their compensation. Evidence to this point is mixed. The executives in large firms earn higher compensations does not imply a given executive can earn more by acquiring unrelated industries. Moreover, if the diversification reduces the firm's value, then the executives who are compensated by stock and or options will suffer in this M&A activity. Third, the diversification can reduce the executive risk. The manager probably will be laid off by a related poor performance to the macroeconomy of our competitors. Diversification will limit the risk of extremely poor overall profitability, which is consistent with the research observed. Note that this is not necessarily a bad thing for the owners, because the CEO may accept a lower salary in exchange for job security. One necessary condition of motivation for diversification to the managers is the failure of corporate governance. This is a special category of principal agent problem. More specifically, the corporate governance is a series of mechanisms through which corporations and their managers are controlled by shareholders. If the information is symmetric, the monitor of the manager's activities are costless, and these two elements are contractable, the problem will disappear. That is, if shareholders could 1. Determine which acquisitions will lead to increased profit and which ones will not, and 2. Direct management to undertake only those that will increase shareholders' value. But the principal agent problem is likely to hold in practice, which leads the discussion of managerial reason for diversification a problem on corporate governance. One may try to solve this problem by the market for corporate control. An efficient financial market will have the information and expectation on the activity of acquisition by a firm. If the reason of diversification is not allied to the benefit of shareholders, say the manager overpaid for this acquisition, the value of the firm will fall by the amount of overpay. Or, if the behavior of the executives leads an expectation on the future overpay, then the stock price will fall today in responding on the expectation of these future events. The difference between potential and actual of market price presents an opportunity for another entity to try to take over. The lack of funding after this diversification makes the problem even worse. The takeover does not necessarily occur to deter this kind of attack. The wave of leverage buyout transactions in 1980s provides an evidence of the market for corporate control. The development of the skills on corporate governance in mid-1980s makes the LBO merge wave ended. First, the firm increased CEO ownership stakes. Second, introducing new performance measures to focus on the cost of capital. Third, institutional shareholders such as pension funds began to monitor managers. Some evidence are summarized in the section of performance of diversified firm. Take a look at these cases and example 2.6 for the empirical studies. Let's stop our discussion of horizontal boundaries here. In next video, we turn our lens to the vertical boundaries. See you then.